Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'll be reviewing the FOCAL Celestee headphones. I hope you enjoy it. The FOCAL Celestee is a wired headphone, as you can see here. As you may be able to see here, but you might not be able to tell, they are also, they have a fit and finish that's a cut above a typical under $1,000 headphone. These are $999, so they just squeak in under $1,000. That's $999 in the US. But I have to say, they're just beautifully made, and I'm not sure how much that matters to you, but it's kind of a confidence inspirer. In any event, they have 40 millimeter drivers with FOCAL's special M shape. FOCAL, as you may know, makes a range of headphones well into the high end, and this is not even close to the top of the line. But I think at $999 for a lot of people, it's in that, wow, not inexpensive, I'd have to stretch to go there kind of space, which makes it very interesting to review to see, first of all, is it significantly better than the $200, $300, $400, $600 headphones that are readily available, some of which I've reviewed, and does it do a lot of what the $1,500, $2,000, and $3,000 headphones do? So we'll take a look at that today. The Celestees, as I said, are a wired headphone. So I use them with my streaming setup, which consists of the Lumen T3 streamer and the DCS Lena headphone amplifier. That's $16,000, $17,000 combination, so maybe that's overkill for a $1,000 headphone, but you want to be sure you're listening to the headphone, not the effects of the source equipment that you're using. I also used, and I'll show you this here, a Cord Mojo Poly, which is not inexpensive, I think around $1,600, but I used this because this gives you a portable Wi-Fi based streaming solution where you could throw the Mojo and Poly in your pocket and walk around your room or your office and, be somewhat freed from the fact that you do have a cable, but the cable's just, dangling at your side rather than connected to a giant 20-pound headphone amplifier sitting on your desktop. I wanted to be sure that a portable amplifier would be sufficient to drive these, and indeed it was. Okay, I'll be back in a minute to talk about sound quality because that's what we're here to talk about, and frankly I don't think, as I'm fond of saying, that you can reason very clearly from technical features to sound quality, so that's why we listen. Okay, back in a sec. When we get to sound quality, I want to mention what sounds like a feature, but it, to me, is part of the use case for these headphones. And that's that they're closed back headphones. You may have an opinion, I say be careful, but you may have an opinion about whether closed back or open back headphones are better. But one thing is almost certainly the case, which is that a closed back headphone will let less of the external noise in your environment into your ear. And that means if you're using these in an office environment or in a brew pub or in a coffee shop or on mass transit, I think you're going to have a little bit better time with these in portable mode than you would with an open back headphone, which inevitably will let somewhat more sound through. But by that token, they are not noise canceling, and so you're not going to get the same degree of noise reduction that you would with noise canceling headphones. Although, I will say, noise canceling headphones also come with their own can of worms, shall we say. So I think if you're interested in the highest possible quality, it's not unreasonable to start with a closed back headphone, and that gives you some kind of isolation. And I think very strongly, but you can disagree with my opinion, that you want a wired headphone. You want a wired headphone because you cannot do high resolution audio. You can't even do normal CD quality audio over a wireless connection if the connection is based on standard Bluetooth technology. I've explained that before. It has to do with the bit rate and the bit rate limitations of Bluetooth, but you're operating at a third, a quarter, a sixth, an eighth of the resolution that's possible with high-res sources and a wired connection. I will have in a few weeks a review of a FOCAL wireless headphone that has some special technologies that attempt to get around this issue. I can't say right now whether they do or don't, but FOCAL has, I think, recognized they aren't listening to me, but they've recognized what I'm talking about, which is you just can't do high res or even standard res with Bluetooth data rates. Anyway, so I would want a closed back wired headphone if I were going for the highest possible quality. I would also want some kind of box like this that could stream Tidal and Roon and Qobuz, and Tidal and Qobuz have an excellent array of above standard CD quality albums. And so the combination of the Chord Mojo Poly or something like this and these headphones, I think, makes a pretty reasonable use case if you're really into quality. Okay, let's talk about the intrinsic qualities of these headphones, because it's kind of an interesting story. These sound somewhat different from almost all the other headphones that I've listened to, but in kind of a way that's an amalgam of some of the better headphones that are out there. As you may know, I like to classify headphones into one of three camps. There's warm and soft. There is the camp that is focused on dynamic transparency, and then there's the group that I call mid-range focused. And we'll put some, very approximate curves on the screen to show you in frequency response terms kind of what I'm talking about. But frequency response isn't the only thing we're working with here. It's an overall voicing concept of how the headphone is set up that I'm trying to get across, because I think that overall feeling is really important to a lot of people, and you're trying to first join the correct camp and then pick the best headphones for your budget within that camp. The problem with the Celestees is they sort of defy that classification scheme. Not completely. So I'm going to say they are mostly in the dynamic transparency camp, but with one eye toward warm and soft. I'll detail that in a sec. And one eye toward mid-range focused. Okay, so the thing I probably like the best about the Celestees is they are quite balanced top to bottom. And I want to emphasize this, I don't mean exactly in terms of frequency response. But unlike a lot of other headphones that I've had in the lab and on evaluation, these don't seem to have a bumpy or ripply frequency response curve where, 200 hertz is kind of emphasized, but 400 hertz is below normal level, and then there's a little bit of a rise around 900 hertz, and then there's a drop off at 1600, and it's just woo, 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 woo. And that just lends a real sense of unnaturalness to the proceedings, which, you want my opinion, I find that borderline annoying. These don't do that. These have not completely flat, that's what I'm going to talk about in a minute, but a not completely flat frequency response curve that's very smooth, octave to octave. So you don't get that rippling weirdness that you get from, frankly, quite a few headphones. I thought that was a huge plus and mostly made them quite enjoyable to listen to on all kinds of music. I listen to jazz, chamber music, hip-hop, old-fashioned 70s, 80s, and 90s rock and roll, singer-songwriters, solo piano, and many, many more. I pretty much go through the whole gambit of musical styles when I do a review. Okay, so that smoothness lets you hear all kinds of music and lets the performers do their thing and lets you follow bass lines or singers or piano or drum kit with cymbals and violins, and you hear the whole thing in a pretty darn natural way. All right, so that's the first thing I'll say that is a big thing and is rare. And I quite enjoyed it. All right, where do we deviate from, let's just call it perfection, but where do we deviate from the ideal, at least in Tom's mind? All right, there's a little bit of a rise in the upper bass. That warms the proceedings up a little bit, and I think that is actually something a lot of people would go for and enjoy. That little sense of warmth makes the headphones seem a tiny bit more relaxed, and that means as a headphone that you can use, because it's so smooth, for what I call foreground listening, really paying attention to the music, but also a headphone that you can just strap on and then go work on a spreadsheet or typing a Word document or whatever it is you might want to do, reading a book. It's a headphone that doesn't reach out and grab you by the scruff of the neck and shake you with it to get your attention. And frankly, sometimes that's what you want. And I would say, from talking to hundreds of audiophiles, sometimes a little bit of warmth is just, it makes the music sound more real and natural, because you don't have all the cues you would have if you were listening to music in a real acoustic environment. So that bass warmth was a second thing that I can classify as a deviation from the ideal, but I think a lot of people would enjoy. The third thing that I'll notice is that very, very smoothly, and again, it's a small deviation, I would say the upper frequencies are not rolled off, they're just shelved down slightly. I can really see an engineering team at FOCAL meeting and deciding to do these headphones the way they did, and a lot of listeners coming away and saying that is beautifully judged and that's what I'm looking for. What it does acoustically, because it's, again, managed so smoothly, is it makes the performer seem slightly more distant, and it makes transient attacks slightly softer than they might be in reality. Okay, again, I think that's a thing that a lot of people would strap these on and go, yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking for. And because they're so smooth, they don't make the instruments in any of those ranges sound unnatural. They just have a voicing that caters to a particular taste. The one other deviation from what I would call perfectly neutral that I noticed is I think there's a little center of the mid-range 1 to 2K emphasis, and again, it's really small. I wanna be sure that's clear. It's quite small. I think that's a very reasonable choice because the mid-range is so important, and it allows you to have a very good sense of clarity with these headphones. But I think the downside is on maybe say mediocre recordings, and that especially means some older recordings, middle of the CD era, 1985 to 1995 kind of recordings. You may get a little bit of edge or grit, which is the headphone revealing some edginess or defects in the recording process. You might say you want that, but I think it's a teeny weeny bit emphasized here. So I hope I've done a good job of saying these are very carefully and sensibly, and I think for a lot of people, desirably voiced headphones that do, I believe, deviate from pure neutrality, but I haven't met that many people who actually want pure neutrality. Whether this is exactly your cup of tea and the exact voicing is what you would want, I don't really know. Let me mention one final thing, which is that the way the bass is voiced, the low to mid bass, I'm going to say 40 to 70 hertz, is not overemphasized. It's good, it's solid. I thought it did, for my taste, a wonderful job, but people who want a big bass headphone are probably going to have to look elsewhere. By big bass, I mean overemphasized, cranked up. If bass is your thing and you've got dual 12s in your trunk, I don't think this is going to turn out to be your headphone because it's too neutral for that kind of operation. All right. I quite enjoyed these headphones. I think the use case of listening to high-resolution music where their smoothness really does a wonderful job, together with the closed-back isolation and the ability to be driven by portable headphone amplifiers, plus their price point, which is not low. It fits with a use case where you've got somebody who's really a headphoneista, audiophile kind of person, and the extra expenditure for the headphone amp and having high-res recordings on an SD card, or if you go to the extreme on a streaming setup like this, is, what you might want to expect. I don't think you're going to be as happy with these if you don't have a decent, not amazing, but a decent headphone amplifier, because there's too much goodness going on here for you to really get that out of a weak amplifier. I hope you enjoyed this. I enjoyed making it. I enjoyed listening to the FOCAL Celestee headphones. If you did, please click on the subscribe button. Please click on the notification bell. That way you find out when we do additional headphone reviews and many other kinds of reviews, turntables, streamers, integrated amps, the whole 9 yards. We would also love it if you would subscribe using the link below to our weekly newsletter. And of course, we have been publishing a magazine for 30 years or so, and that's where our awards issues are, and some of our interesting blog posts and lots of our high-end reviews appear. So, thank you for being here. We hope you'll join us next time.